I'd like to bring up a topic a little bit more technical in, discussion for the defined benefit plan and the cash balance plan formula and how these calculations are driven. So, Paul, could you give a little bit more details on that formula and what our actuaries kind of do to calculate out each contribution range?
Absolutely. This is always tough thing to answer because sometimes clients want a lot of detail on how the formula is calculated, and we're certainly not actuaries. You and I, we know a lot about the plans, but we don't do the technical calculations every day. So certainly when it comes to general terms, or generally how these things are calculated, we usually talk very general about it with the clients. And we do provide an actuarial Schedule SB and actual valuations, which have all the participant accounts at the end of the year. So occasionally we'll review those with our clients to make sure to kind of go over the formulas and make sure they get it. But before I dive into the specific formula, I did want to say that these plans are going to be generally driven, and I think probably people watching this video may already know this, driven by age and W-2 compensation or net income if you're a business owner. So the higher your compensation is or business income, and the older you are, the more that you can get in. And that's just because you're that much closer to retirement. These plans allow a maximum contribution of $3.5 million at age 62. So they allow for much larger contributions than a 401k plan, allow you to get a lot more in. As you look specifically at the calculation, a traditional defined benefit plan will usually say, the final annuity payout is going to be 80% of the average of the last 3 years, multiplied times however many years they've, been, engaged or a participant in the plan. So, it's a little bit more of a moving target. It's based on sort of those last 3 years. And then it's annuitized out typically from age 62 out to your normal mortality rate, which is around, 78, 80 years old. Obviously that goes up or down every year. So that's going to be, now there's a lot more complexity that dives into it, but mostly what we do, Zach, are cash balance plans, which are hybrid plans. They're still a type of defined benefit plan. And these plans, the calculation and the formula works a little differently. There's a pay credit that you get each year, and then there's an interest credit that goes on top of that. So let me give you an example. Let's say I'm, 55 years old, and let's say hypothetically my W-2 is 100 grand, and the plan is set up with 100% pay credit and then an interest credit of 5%. So the formula works sort of like $100,000 W-2, $100,000 pay credit, right? 100%. That would be my first year formula. Second year, I get a pay credit of 5%. In the second year, that pay credit is applied to the prior year contribution. So in year 2, let's assume my W-2 is still 100 and my contribution amount is going to be 100. Then we're also going to get a pay credit of 5% on the prior year. So 5% of 100 is, of course, $5,000. So my account credit to my individual account is going to be $200,000 plus the $5 grand. It's going to be $205,000, and that's going to go up every year. And after 5 years, assuming you work through that, what's the amount going to be? It's going to be 550,000, whatever the number is, because it's going to compound. Those pay credit amounts are going to compound each year. Okay, right. So it's kind of a lot more simplified in that manner. But the one disconnect you find on the formula is that even though that's the pay credit formula that I'm going to get individually, we will also give you the ability to overfund the plan, and your investment returns are not going to be exactly 5%, right? Even though the employee gets 5%, the investment returns might be 6% one year, 3% the next, 8% the next. They're going to bounce around. Hopefully, in general, they're going to be close to the 5%. But in my example, after 5 years, I have an amount of, let's say, $550,000 in there, and that's a pay credit, and that's the account balance formula for myself. The investment account might be, $500,000 at the end of year 5. It might be $600,000. In theory, it's never going to exactly equal Every plan is in fact going to be slightly overfunded or underfunded. So it's never going to equal, the formula amount that I get. You just want to keep it rather close. If the balance in the account is 700, then you start getting to where it's very overfunded, and it's going to significantly decrease your funding amounts. If for some reason there was a lot of loss in the assets or minimum funding amounts were at the low end, then maybe the balance is 400. So you're going to need to catch up. So there's always that disconnect between the investment account balance and the actual formula that I'm going to get in the plan. And so, you always have to weigh those two things. But in reality, the formula is a little bit easier for a cash balance plan. It's take a look at that pay credit, add on those interest credit rates of the interest credit at 5%. That's going to grow over time. And again, your funding is going to be a mechanism that's going to combine the investment account to the actual formula calculation that the individual is going to get. I try to dumb it down as much. Again, we're not actuaries, so try to make it as simple as possible. And so hopefully that makes sense to you, Zach, and that's maybe consistent with what you see with other clients. Again, hopefully that makes sense for you, Zach.
Yep, absolutely. There was one other topic that has come up where I've had a couple of clients who had, real estate holdings and passive income through royalties and whatnot. Now, in those instances, unfortunately, that income won't qualify for a contribution towards these plans. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think what you're saying is if you're talking about specifically people who have real estate or investments or other things like that from an income standpoint, correct? Yeah, you're not going to see those people be able to contribute that income towards this plan. These are specifically for business owners. So you got to have a Schedule C, S Corp, W-2. So if you've got real estate holdings or some other passive stuff on the side, we're not going to use that. But if you do have a self-directed plan where you've got those assets potentially in the plan, which is a whole different issue, that's going to tie into your overall investment account, and that's going to be offset with that formula that we discussed that has the individual account balances. So, yep.
Exactly, Paul. All right. Well, thank you so much. I think that concludes this topic.